Woody Allen had written every word, rehearsed every gesture, controlled every moment. The script for Play It Again, Sam was precise, detailed, engineered for specific laughs at specific moments. Every line had been tested, refined, locked into place. Then Diane Keaton walked into the rehearsal room on that first day in 1969 and started improvising. And everything Woody thought he knew about making art shattered in an instant. She changed a line, added a gesture that was not in the script, said la-di-da in a way that was completely her own, not written, not planned, not controlled. And Woody, who had spent his entire career building walls of words to protect himself, felt those walls begin to crack. It was terrifying. It was liberating. And it would change both of their lives forever. But the real story had never been only about one rehearsal. Woody Allen had always been a writer first. Words were his armor, his weapon, his entire relationship with the world. He had started writing jokes as a teenager, selling them to newspaper columnists, learning that the right words in the right order could create safety, could make people laugh instead of judge, could turn vulnerability into performance. By the time he was making films in the late 1960s, his process was rigid. He wrote complete scripts where every word mattered. Every joke was engineered. Every character spoke the way Woody wrote, which meant they spoke like Woody thought, neurotic, intellectual, self-aware to the point of paralysis. His actors were expected to deliver lines exactly as written. No improvisation, no interpretation. The script was sacred. Woody had learned from watching comedians that timing was everything, and timing required precision. One word changed could ruin a joke. One gesture added could throw off the rhythm. Control was not optional. It was survival. This approach had worked in his early films. Take the Money and Run, Bananas. They were funny, successful. Exactly what he intended. The actors delivered his words, the jokes landed, audiences laughed. But something was missing. A warmth, a spontaneity, a sense that real people existed underneath the carefully constructed wit. Woody sensed the limitation, but did not know how to fix it, because fixing it would require trusting someone else. And trust meant surrendering control. And surrendering control meant risking that the thing he made would not be exactly what he intended. That risk felt like death. Then he wrote Play It Again, Sam, a comedy about a man abandoned by his wife who learns how to date again with advice from the ghost of Humphrey Bogart. It was personal. Woody's first marriage had collapsed, and the script processed that pain through humor. But it was still carefully controlled, still every word in place. The play was cast for Broadway in 1969. Woody would play the lead, the neurotic film critic whose life was falling apart. The female lead, the best friend's wife who helps him find confidence, required someone warm, natural, able to balance Woody's anxiety with genuine charm. The casting director suggested Diane Keaton. Woody had never heard of her. She was young, 23, almost unknown, had done some off-Broadway work, but nothing major. She came to the audition wearing clothes that did not quite match, with an energy that felt unpolished, uncontrolled, real in ways that made Woody uncomfortable. She read the lines, but she also added things, little vocal quirks, physical gestures, a yeah that turned into yeah, with a specific inflection that was entirely her own, a laugh that sounded like actual laughter rather than performed amusement. Woody watched, uncertain. She was not doing what was written. She was interpreting, and interpretation meant unpredictability. but there was something undeniable about her. A naturalness that made his carefully written words sound like things a real person might actually say. He cast her, still uncertain if it was the right choice. Rehearsals began, and from the first read-through, the tension was obvious. Woody expected precision. Diane offered spontaneity. He wanted the script delivered exactly as written. She wanted to find the character through exploration. "The line is, 'I don't think that's a good idea,'" Woody would say. But wouldn't she say, "I don't know, that seems kind of crazy"? Diane would respond, "No, the line is written specifically for the rhythm of the joke." But it doesn't feel like something she would say. This debate happened constantly. Woody insisted on control. Diane pushed for authenticity. The director mediated, trying to find compromise. But the fundamental conflict remained. Woody believed the words were sacred. Diane believed the character was more important than the words. 3 weeks into rehearsal, something shifted. They were working on a scene where Diane's character was supposed to comfort Woody's character after a disastrous date. The script had specific dialogue. Diane was supposed to say, "Don't worry, you'll figure it out." But during the run-through, she improvised. Instead of the written line, she made a sound, la-di-da, while gesturing vaguely, a kind of musical dismissal of his anxiety that communicated more than the scripted reassurance ever could. Woody stopped. "That's not the line." "I know," Diane said, "but doesn't it feel more like her? She's not giving advice. She's just being present. The line is written to get a laugh, but this gets something better than a laugh. It gets a moment." The director intervened. "Let's try it both ways." They ran the scene with the script. It was funny. The joke worked. The audience would laugh. Then they ran it with Diane's improvisation. And something different happened. The scene became real. Not funny in a joke way, but true in a human way. The comfort she offered felt genuine because it was not performed. It was simply Diane being Diane. Woody watched from the audience seats, and for the first time in his career, he understood that maybe his way was not the only way, that maybe controlling every word was preventing something more valuable from emerging. "Use her version," he said quietly. Diane looked surprised. The director looked relieved, and Woody felt a tiny crack form in the walls he had built around his work. Play It Again, Sam opened on Broadway in February 1969 and ran for over a year. Critics loved it. Audiences loved it. But more importantly, Woody began to see something. The moments that worked best were not always the ones he had engineered. They were the ones where Diane brought her natural energy, her spontaneous reactions, her refusal to be contained by the script. During the run, their relationship evolved. Professional collaboration became friendship. Friendship became romance. Woody had never been with someone who challenged him creatively the way Diane did. Most people deferred to him, assumed he knew best. Diane argued, pushed back, insisted on her own instincts. It was maddening. It was also exhilarating. When they decided to adapt Play It Again, Sam into a film in 1972, Woody wrote the screenplay. But this time, he wrote differently. He left space. He wrote lines that could be interpreted rather than delivered. He trusted that Diane would find moments he could not have engineered. Herbert Ross directed the film version, which gave Woody perspective. He could watch Diane work without the pressure of directing. And what he saw changed how he thought about acting, about writing, about control. Diane did not disappear into the character. She brought herself to the character. Her mannerisms, her vocal patterns, her physicality, all of it was distinctly Diane, but it served the story perfectly. She was not performing someone else. She was finding truth by being herself. Woody began writing his next script with Diane in mind. Not writing for her to perform, but writing around her, creating a character that would give her space to be natural, spontaneous, real. The script would eventually become Annie Hall. The character of Annie was not Diane exactly, but it was written to accommodate everything Woody had learned from watching her work. The nervous verbal tics, the fashion choices that did not quite match, the la-di-da energy that turned anxiety into charm, the refusal to be anything other than exactly who she was. During Annie Hall production in 1976, Woody directed for the first time with genuine collaboration. He still wrote every word, but he encouraged Diane to interpret, to add, to find moments. Some of the most memorable scenes, Annie's awkward family dinner, the lobster scene, the la-di-da moments that punctuated the film, came from Diane's natural instincts rather than Woody's script. The tennis scene was scripted. Diane's costume was not. She showed up wearing clothes from her own closet. Oversized men's vest, tie, baggy pants that became iconic. Woody had written nothing about costume, but he recognized that Diane's instinct for what Annie would wear was better than anything he could have specified. The film's fragmented structure, breaking the fourth wall, allowing characters to comment on their own scenes, all of it created space for spontaneity. Woody was learning that loosening control did not mean losing the film. It meant discovering things he could not have found through rigid planning. Annie Hall won Best Picture. Diane won Best Actress. The film became a cultural phenomenon, quoted and referenced for decades. And everyone recognized that the chemistry between Woody and Diane was real because it was real. They were not performing a relationship. They were allowing their actual dynamic, his neurotic control, her natural spontaneity, to become the heart of the film. But by the time Annie Hall was released, their romantic relationship was ending. They remained friends, continued working together, but the romance could not survive. Woody needed order. Diane needed freedom. The same tension that made their creative collaboration electric made their personal relationship impossible. Yet the artistic partnership continued. Manhattan, Radio Days, and later films featured Diane in roles that only she could play, because Woody had learned to write for her specifically, not to control her, but to create space for her to be herself. Other actresses worked with Woody and recognized what Diane had taught him. Mia Farrow, Scarlett Johansson, Cate Blanchett, all of them found that Woody's scripts contained room for interpretation, that he valued natural performance over precise delivery, that he had learned to trust actors in ways that early Woody never could. The lesson was hard-won. Woody had spent his entire life using words as armor, writing jokes to protect himself, creating characters that spoke his thoughts precisely because that felt safe. Diane forced him to see that safety was the enemy of truth, that allowing spontaneity, trusting another artist's instincts, surrendering some control, that was where real connection lived. Years later, asked about Diane's influence, Woody was characteristically understated. "She taught me that actors are not just delivering your words. They're creating something you didn't write. If you're smart, you get out of their way." But the truth was deeper. Diane had not just taught him about acting. She had taught him about trust, about collaboration, about the difference between controlling art and allowing it to breathe. The walls Woody had built around his work, the rigid scripts, the precise delivery, the engineered jokes, had protected him. But they had also limited him. Diane showed him that you could be vulnerable and still make great art, that you could surrender control and discover something more valuable than anything you could plan. Play It Again, Sam was supposed to be a simple comedy, a three-act play with jokes in the right places. But when Diane Keaton walked into that rehearsal room in 1969 and refused to be contained by the script, she started something neither of them fully understood at the time. She taught Woody to stop writing every moment, to leave space, to trust. And in that space, in that trust, Annie Hall was born. A film that felt real because it was real. A film that captured something true about relationships and neurosis and New York because it allowed two artists to bring themselves rather than performing someone else's vision. The greatest gift one artist can give another is permission to be imperfect, to try things that might not work, to trust instinct over planning. Diane gave Woody that permission, and he spent the rest of his career learning how to give it to others. She changed a line in rehearsal, added la-di-da where nothing was written, wore her own clothes instead of costume, trusted her instincts instead of his instructions. Small acts of rebellion that accumulated into transformation. Woody Allen had written every word, until Diane Keaton taught him that the best words were sometimes the ones you did not write, the ones that emerged spontaneously from an actor, being truthfully present rather than precisely controlled. And that lesson, that trust, that surrender, that collaboration, became the foundation for everything important Woody would create afterward.